Welcome. I was almost finished editing a video of a general recap of the lore up to heresy, then was jump scared by Hikita announcing violence being released very soon. When it did, I played through it, and it might have been a blessing in disguise, as the lore introduced here in the new enemies has completely flipped it all upside down. Before we go into the greater picture, let's focus on violence itself and establish some groundwork. Spoilers ahead for violence and all its contents. The Garden of Forking Paths is a labyrinth that is not only confusing in general, but also under watch by hell itself to ensure no one escapes. The halls twist and warp behind corners and doors, betraying familiarity by creating an endless loop. The mannequins are such sinners who fell victim to this. The mannequins were once husks. After the disappearance of the angels, they took advantage and evaded the fighting above, only to run into an endless, ever-changing maze. These husks wrote many tablets during their attempts. When they became too exhausted to continue, they fell asleep. Hell took them in and transformed them. Each of their joints was torn apart and shoved into empty stone shells. Their bodies, still alive and mixed with Hell's own influence, turned them into demons. Even now, you can hear the raspy breaths of the hopeless husk inside. Ever in agony, ever trapped in hell and their own body. Killing them is a mercy to these poor souls. This is a recurring theme that we'll come across in this layer. Soon we encounter the Minotaur, a grotesque yet fascinating abomination. Both in-game and in the terminal, the name was crossed out. The beginning of the data shows no information. This is most likely just a reference. If you scroll down, you'll see what the entry is supposed to be, but is colored red, and also crossed out. The Minotaur is one of the oldest known demons alive. A redacted individual sculpted it, meant to be gifted to King Minos as a token of good faith. In contrast to its creator, Minos was terrified of it because it reminded him of his past mistakes. He forced it into the Garden of Forking Paths, hoping the maze would keep the Minotaur hidden forever. Over time, its body has worn down, but its desire to escape grew stronger. You first see it barrel ahead of you through the walls, a taste of what's to come. It later appears on the track as the boss, but you manage to defeat it, but not kill it. As you press forward, it crashes through again, preventing your escape and fighting you with its battered and bloodied shell. Here, you finally kill the Minotaur, and in its dying scream, it looks up and reaches to the sky in a vain attempt to grasp the stars it's wanted to see for countless centuries. Now, who is this mysterious individual? As you look closely, the redactions are actually a set of boxes. 4 letters, and then 6. It's easy to assume it begins with King. However, I like the theory that it's Hell itself. Remember, Hell is cruel, and it makes sense for Hell to gift Minos a symbol of his personal torment and historical failure. It's also cruel to allow the Minotaur to be imprisoned and trapped, never able to finally see the light of day. Furthermore, it's a personal theory of mine, but it's implied that Hell can direct the flow of Hellmass to create demons. As such, it's logical to assume that Hell created its own personal demon and shaped it in the way it wanted to. On the other hand, demons are known to be sculpted by even the lowly husks, and my previous mention of the first set of boxes being King may hint to a future Prime Soul. Either way, we will have to wait and see if this is elaborated upon in the future levels. As you progress to the second section, you are blocked by a Gutman. This new enemy is terrifying not just in stature, but in story as well. It was created in the first phase of the final war, trench warfare. Its entire design revolved around flushing out soldiers from the trenches with extreme prejudice. They were one of the first successful blood-fueled robots to be developed, and the first to be deployed in combat, hence their terrifying nature. But there's something worse. Since the Gutman was one of the first blood-fueled robots, their technology was not as advanced. The creators couldn't keep the blood inside the machine fresh. To account for this, they took blood from the source and carried it with them. Inside the coffin on the back of a Gutman lies the skeleton that gives the Gutman its fuel, implying they're still alive. The terminal says it was publicly claimed that these individuals were volunteers, but in reality, most of them were prisoners of war, exhausted veterans, or deserters. These people were strapped inside these coffins, kept on minimal life support, and welded inside. They needed to be alive to keep the Gutman alive. These people were tired of war or victims of it. They were forced into this coffin, needles and tubes in their skin, bones, and heart, welded inside, draining their blood. No light and no way to escape, only momentarily waking up to hear machine gun fire and massacre caused by the steel automaton that they themselves are keeping alive. It was this cruelty that inspired Hell to have a hand in creating the mannequins. If the most evil force of nature takes inspiration from humanity, you know you fucked up. Keep this line in your head. This is the one line that answers everything. But for now, we need to continue. After killing the Gutman, you encounter home. This is the battlefield of the Phlegathon, the river of boiling blood. Meant to scald tyrants, murderers, and war makers for their violence against others. The land is now riddled with spotlights and machine gun fire. The ground is made of corpses of the dead, and flashes of spear lightning reveal towering machines in the background. It is a brutal, depressing sight, especially for those who experience this in life, only to be sent to hell befitting their crime of violence, and repeat the same exact thing in death. War is hell, and hell is cruel. In this layer we encounter the gutter tank, a countermeasure for the previous Gutman. While the gutter man flushed trenches extremely efficiently, the gutter tank flushed the Gutman extremely efficiently. The gutter tank single-handedly ended the trench phase of the war and started the global arms race to develop further and further countermeasures to each iteration of blood-fueled robots. This started the second phase of the war, where the machines would dominate the battlefield and render human soldiers obsolete. This was a relief at first because it meant that humans no longer had to do any fighting. What really happened is that all resources were poured into develop new and improved machines, meaning civilian life was just as bad as before. If the machines managed to break defenses and encounter civilians, there was nothing left of the city or the people to bury. Conquest leads to war. War leads to famine. Famine leads to death. After the battlefield, you enter Slender's Fort. After the battlefield, you enter the Wood of Suicides. While the previous section punished murderers by drowning in boiling blood and constant war, the second ring depicts those who have attempted to or have successfully committed suicide, violence against self. Since they threw away the body that God gave them, in death, they do not even have the dignity of keeping their body, instead being turned into a warped and dead tree. In the second coming of Christ, these sinners will not be saved. Instead, Jesus will pass them, and their own actual dead bodies will be hung from their own branches. They truly will be witness to and be tortured by their sin of violence against self for all eternity. While there are no harpies to pick apart these sinners, they are still alive, writhing and slowly screaming to voice their eternal torment in the haunting darkness. After passing the ominous gates, you are told to feed the tree by killing blood manifestations called puppets. These mysterious beings have no terminal entry, so it can only go off context here. First, notice how the text says, "Feed it." This isn't the first time we've seen text here say something. V1 says this as V2 runs away for the second time. But do you see the spacing in the text of this line? We've seen this before. In the ARG, Hell speaks through the message to Tom, asking for seconds. In P2, it either laughs at us or tells us to have fun. In the Wood of Suicides, Hell speaks directly to us, manifesting, not teleporting, blood creatures to feed the tree and cause it to bloom. This tree also has the body of a sinner, but rather than just becoming the tree, it is also impaled by it. This is also the first section we encounter where the enemies are infighting by default. This is how it's really supposed to be. Machines are killing everything for their blood. Husks are killing everything out of a desire to revolt or pure viciousness. And demons and angels are killing everything to keep the peace. Every faction is trying to kill each other for one reason or another. They focus on you most of the time because every enemy recognizes you as the largest threat in the room.
But then I was thinking, okay, but what if there's already a fight going on before you enter the room? Then they would still continuing to focus on each other. So that's why these sort of all these arenas, the fight is already going on by the time you enter the room, which is then, which is like the context to that. But then someone said, like it's just, oh, it's really cool because it like implies that all these machines and such are under the influence of the trees, of like they're also trying to feed the trees. I was like, that's such a better idea. Nice, you did it.
After clearing the forest, you stand at the toes of the most massive machine ever created. But let's look at the ground for a second. This desert depicts the final section of violence against God, art, and nature. Here, blasphemers, sodomites, and usurers are lying, fleeing, or cowering, respectively, from the fireballs raining from the sky. I look around and I see no sinners. Probably are all dead as a result of the conflict happening everywhere. Despite this emptiness, the fireballs still rain from the sky. So, that's still happening. Now we can focus on the Earthmover. The Earthmover was developed near the end of the final war as the pinnacle of machine technology. Within, it houses a shield generator, a massive reservoir of blood and gore, and it houses people. Obviously, you do not see these people, but you see what they left behind. Curiously, the data entry notes they could only be made vulnerable from within, which is what V1 did to destroy one. It also has a massive human-like brain in its head. Both the brain and the gore have terrifying implications for the rest of the machines. In the last moments of the final war, every blade of grass, grain of sand, and all animals on Earth were scorched or blown apart by the effects of global, indiscriminate warfare. The only place to live safely was on the back of these new machines called Earthmovers. They could protect and house civilians in the safety of the shield generator, and defended by the Earthmover's massive rail cannon. Eventually, the extinction events these so-called horsemen of the apocalypse caused over 200 years worth of near irreparable damage to the Earth's biosphere. While the Earthmovers had blood fueling, it was too massive to rely on blood alone, so it was supplemented by solar power. When the soot and ash clouded the skies, these titans slowly died off, taking their residents with them. These last few bastions of safety amidst a dying planet woke the last few humans to a terrible truth. They had been fighting for nothing. They were not fighting to win a war anymore. They were not fighting to conquer or for revenge. After 200 years of fighting, there was nothing left to fight for. Everyone was at war because everyone else was. There was no purpose, no reason for it. The last of humanity collectively realized this. They laid down their arms and worked together to reverse the damage to Earth and themselves. This was the start of the new peace. 200 years of war for its own sake ended not with a bang, but utter silence. This act appears to be the one that answers a lot of questions. As always, the comments have many extra details and stuff I may have missed. You guys are awesome down there, and I love the discourse. Finally, another, more critical lore development is made here. One that completes a massive glaring hole in our developing story. We have the pieces, and we can connect them, and it has revolutionized the lore as we know it. We will surely meet again, eventually.